Good morning and welcome to the Indiana Farm Equipment and Technology Expo. I'm Eric Pfeiffer from Hoosier Ag today. Thank you to everyone that is here and those of you that are live streaming this as well. I'm telling you, you're missing out a little bit. I know you're getting to see the presentation here, the drone show with Chad Colby and Purdue Extension, but it's better to be here. There's a lot of other stuff going on around here, and you certainly want to be here for that. So thank you for joining us, but get here to Grand Park in Westfield and don't go to the fairgrounds. We're not there. Grand Park, Westfield, Indiana. Again, thank you everyone for coming today. Really appreciate it. We appreciate you coming to the show, and we hope you have a great day here. Uh, One thing, we are getting ready to learn a little bit about drones, but we've got signs around the show. We've got one right over there. If you just take your camera, open it up, and act like you're taking a picture of that big code there, you can sign up to receive a free drone up to $1,000 in value. So be sure to check that out before you leave today as well. Really excited to have these next folks on the stage and to introduce them as one of our sponsors. And I think you're going to do your stand-up comedy routine and warm up, right? Okay. This is Dallas Foster from Bain Welker, one of our sponsors at the seminar stage. Please welcome Dallas.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dallas Foster, Ag and Construction Sales for Bain Welker Equipment in Pendleton, Indiana. Bain Welker Equipment is a full-line Case IH dealership with 15 stores across Indiana and Ohio. We are proud to be here today and be a sponsor, along with a couple of our key partners, Farm Credit and Ag Direct. Those two companies do help us finance our customers and allow them to grow their operations. With that said, we also, as a dealership, look into the future, and technology is one of those things that we're always keeping our eye on as to what the trends are and what the potential is to return bigger profits back to the farming operations. So with that said, on behalf of Bain Welker and all of the employee owners, we would like to welcome Chad Colby and Purdue Extension to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So first of all, good morning. For those of you that don't know, in the ag space, I'm kind of the drone geek. And I was a pilot or been a pilot for 20 years. And when I started with drones back in 09, 08, you couldn't go to Best Buy and just buy one across the counter. You had to build it, and then you got all those fun experiences that took place then, meaning poor flight times, and it was kind of a mess, as these fellas here know, sitting to my left. So what we wanted to do this morning was I wanted to talk to a couple folks that I really trust in the industry. The first one is Randy Oberle from Flying Ag and Mark Carter from Purdue University. And the reason why is I wanted to get their, first of all, share with you their experience, what got them where they are now with what they're doing, to help you understand where this technology is going. I'm going to quiz these guys on some of that. So first, Randy Oberle, I'll start with you. Real simple. You're a farmer. Tell a little bit about your farming operation and talk a little bit about Flying Ag, please.
My name's Randy Oberle. I'm from Gibson City, Illinois. We run a couple thousand acres, corn and soybeans there. Got into drones back, I don't know, 2012, 13, something like that. And
Wait, you're not going to blame that on me, are you? Well, you might, actually.
it was through you, yeah. And then Flying Egg got founded early in 2015, and been an active part of that ever since.
So talk a little bit about Flying Ag. What do you guys do specifically? You're one of the companies that has actually survived this whole drone thing, and you're still around. Talk a little bit about what the model is, what you guys do.
So we're three farmers. I'm from Eastern Illinois. I got a partner up in Ligonier, Indiana. He's a hog farmer up there. And then the third one's out in California. He grows nuts and grapes and everything they do out there. So early on, we there was a lot of manufacturers, a lot of custom drones, and we wanted to try to help bring some clarity to the market, as to how to help farmers get started in drones, realizing that there was no reason to go spend $6,000 on a custom drone that, sorry, after you bought it, it's literally worth this much. And so we can take what's available on the shelf, do what we need to do with it, and So we started out by making kits out of them, so that it wasn't okay, well, you need to go get this piece and then that piece and add this and do everything to make it work. We could put all that together, and just like going to buy a tractor, when it comes to you, it's complete and ready to go.
Thanks, Randy. All right, Mark, I'm pretty excited to talk to you. If you guys haven't been by his booth, it's at the end of I don't know where my directions are, but it's at the end of this aisle. And you got a whole bunch of drones there. And before we start talking, geeking out a little bit here, let's talk a little bit about your background. I'm guessing there was some remote control experience or something that got you into this.
Just a little bit. I'm from Matthews, Indiana. My family farms 3,500 acres. Before I broke my back, I was very active, working all the time on the farm. 20 years ago, I broke my back in an auto accident. So, being able to get out and do a lot of things, I couldn't do that anymore. So, RC really made a lot of sense to me. I've been doing remote control cars and rock crawlers and off-road vehicles for most of my life. In fact, when I was a kid, my parents bought me the old turbo hopper.
Yeah.
And it was over from there. So I came to Purdue in 2017 with 4 degrees, and none of it really makes any sense because none of them are ag degrees. But when we found the drones, it was actually one of the Purdue Ag Centers down at North Vernon, Indiana. They saw this Phantom, I think it was a Phantom 4, and they thought, hey, this is kind of cool, and we can take pictures of our fields with it. So they called one of the Purdue specialists and told the specialists about it, and now the corn and soybean specialists are like, hey, we got to have one of them. And it's snowballed to we've got 25 extension educators like myself, the ag educators around the state that have the drones. We've got me personally, I probably got 12 in my fleet. It's just amazing what we've been able to do with them.
You know, I'm not going to get into the bushes too much about some of these topics, but the nicest thing that both of these fellows have experienced is we have proper regulation today. Because initially, when I started doing drones, when I would go to universities and talk to them, they'd be like, oh my gosh, we need to go buy one today. And then the legal department gets involved and says, yeah, no, we don't even know what to do with these now. Oh my gosh. That was in the early 2000s, and that was really a mess when you were at 09 and 10 and 11 and 12. And then once the regulation came, then the universities like Purdue, man, they jumped on the bandwagon, and here comes the money to support it. So, Mark, talk a little bit. Let's get up to speed here. Let's talk a little bit about the sensor technology, maybe from about 400 feet, pardon the pun, kind of high level. I think there's some confusion in there where in the marketplace as far as what's a producer actually need to get some good value out of a drone. I don't think you need to spend $10,000 or $15,000 on a system. Those days are behind us. Now, in research, I get it. You want to see the fancy, cool stuff. It's right down the way. But Mark, you're a very practical guy, and that's from your ag background. Talk a little bit about that. We've got primarily a farmer audience.
If you want to get the most out of a drone, you can buy one of those right there. The Mavic 3, a Mavic 2, a Phantom 4, really anything that's got a digital camera on it. Even this little one that I brought with me has a digital camera on it. And you don't need to have a fancy sensor on it. You don't need a near infrared sensor. All you need is that RGB camera. We call it RGB, red, green, blue light spectrum. And that's all you need. Because when you go up and you're looking at your crops, what you're looking for is a difference between healthy vegetation and unhealthy vegetation. So even if I'm mapping a field, I will still 9 times out of 10 I will use my RGB camera or that digital camera, and I'll upload that into my software, and all it's doing is just looking for differences. Just because it tells me I have a problem over in one part of the field, it does not tell me what that problem is. I don't know if it's bugs or if it's a nutrient issue or if it's a weed issue or what's going on. These do not replace the boots on the ground. We still have to go do that. Now, if you are mapping everything and loading everything into your farm software, you might want a near infrared sensor to give you that NDVI picture. An NDVI picture is just the acronym stands for normalized differentiate
You're going the right way. Yeah.
vegetation index. And you can spend a lot of money on sensors. You don't need if you don't need it, don't buy it.
You know what? Hats off to you, because I struggle with people that want to go down a different path. Unless you're doing research, okay, high-end research, that's different. But for production agriculture, Mark hit the nail right on the head. The thing I like about the drone industry, and he mentioned it, and I'm going to let Randy answer a few questions about this also, is you can buy systems like I'm holding in this case. This is the system that actually they're giving away at the show. So if you're here, make sure you scan the QR code. This thing is what, Randy? What do you charge for this little guy? In the case, all ready to go. What is this?
That kit's $779.
Okay, so for lack of conversation, just less than $1,000. I mean, this is the same price as a smartphone today. And this drone is fantastic. Auto takeoff, auto land. The three of us were up here laughing, talking about this a few minutes ago. Guys, we couldn't do this 3 years ago. Have a drone like this with this kind of quality. You'd have all kinds of problems, okay? Today, these are rock solid systems. And to me, I have a hard time talking to a producer and defending why you don't have one of these in your truck. My dad carried pliers all the time. And I make this joke, but in my pickup truck since late in 2009, I've had a drone in my truck every single day. And I drive probably 50,000 miles a year, and there's always been one in my pickup or three. And the reason being, it's just another tool, and now that tool is really small and works fantastic. Randy, talk just a little bit about this. Give them a little nuts and bolts. Go ahead.
So that's a DJI Mini 2. It's got a 12 megapixel camera on it. It'll take great pictures, equivalent to like your smartphone. It'll shoot good video. It can handle a fair amount of wind. It's all GPS stabilized, has obstacle avoidance, and so it's just a mini version of the nicer, bigger, more expensive ones. Basically as you go up, you're paying for the camera.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. So anyway, just a heads up on that. I think over the years there was some confusion, and not that a Phantom, and they don't make Phantoms anymore, aren't a great drone. You've got one at your booth, don't you, Mark, for people to see? That's that white, bigger looking drone. Where this thing to me really makes a difference is that size. You're throwing this on the floor in the back seat. It's in a tractor with you. You're a realtor. You're a banker. I mean, this is fantastic for what it is. So thanks for that. So I want to talk a little bit about the industry as a whole. I think one of the challenges that drones have is, where are we going from here? There's some companies now, Rantizo comes to mind, that are doing some actual production, commercial acre spraying, tens of thousands of acres, hundreds of thousands of acres across the country. Spraying drones are coming, scaling the drones so we can do more. Mark, I'm going to go back to you. What do you see a little bit, maybe just in that short future, the next 1 to 3 years? What are you seeing this industry doing, especially from where you are at Purdue? What's got your attention personally?
I would say like you said, the scaling of the application drones. We're seeing more and more interest in spraying and spreading. Everybody's asking me all the time about applying fungicide when the corn's too tall to get the sprayer through, or soil conditions are not optimal. And we've got a spray drone down there on the floor of our display, and it's a model that's 3 years old, and we still use it effectively. Now, moving forward, you're going to see more and more of those on the market. You're going to see bigger tanks. You're going to see bigger units. One of our farms just bought one that would fit, all folded up, just barely fits in the bed of my truck.
Wow.
So Uh, Now you have to go to a different license to be able to fly that. It will not, you can't fly that under an FAA Part 107 because it is over that 55 pounds. But when you see these things moving forward to be effective, you're not going to replace the Hagee or the John Deere sprayer. But what you might do with 4 or 5 of these flying in a swarm, which Rantizo's kind of figured out, and I think you're going to see some of that technology start to develop more and more. So if you think about somebody that has, they could hook up a gooseneck or a semi trailer and have 1,000 or 2,000 gallons of water and have their chemical right there and a generator and charging batteries. The one I've got down at the booth, it takes 45 minutes to charge those batteries for a 10-minute flight time. For these new ones, they've got you can charge the batteries in 10 minutes and they have a 10 or 15-minute flight time. So you have 5 or 6 batteries each, and you come in, land the drone, fill the tank, swap the battery, send it back out. The next one comes in, lands, fill the tank, swap the battery, send
Just
it
keep
out,
going.
and just keep going and going. So you're looking at precision application, but you're looking at swarm technology that's going to do more than have pretty lights at the Super Bowl. So
Well, I think Mark hits the nail on the head. There's actually a Rantizo booth here and a fellow that does it. Rantizo's got contractors essentially across the country, and I know some of them that use that. So if you're a farmer and you want to try a 15-acre, fungicide trial, but you can't get in there with your conventional sprayers, guess what? You can hire them to come out, and it's not that expensive. And there's a lot of guys that were doing that last year. So Randy, that we kind of talked with Mark about application side. I know one of the challenges you've faced with Mavics and Phantoms was scalability. How do we cover more acres? And I know I was involved with the program, so I'm going to let you tell the story a little bit. Last year, you guys went down that path with Aero Environment with Aquanics. Talk a little bit about how that model kind of changes that notion of, hey, I want to fly 3,000 acres today. I'm not going to do it with this, or unless you have 5 of them. That's not going to work.
Right.
What did this solution bring? Obviously, this looks a little bit different. I know, Mark, you have some experience with the Aquanics also. I'll let Randy tell the story, then I'll ask Mark some questions too. Talk a little bit about this drone, Randy.
So Air Environment is a company. They do a lot of work with the U.S. military or whatever branch that is, and they're trying to break into the ag space. The one big thing they bring is very good reliability and controls and control systems and whatnot, because they've been in this space for 30 plus years. So they had kind of reached out to us somewhat. This is called Aquanics. It's not a new drone. It's been out for several years, but it takes off and lands vertically, and then it lays over and flies like a plane in flight. So that gets it away from having to, need a launcher to take off and, places to come in and belly land and things like that. But it flies at 45 miles an hour. It can fly and it flies for like 45 minutes. So depending on your field shape and layout, you can get 300-400 acres on a flight and then land, throw a new battery in it, and away you go again. And it, 2,000-4,000 acres a day is totally doable.
So one of the challenges I've had, and Mark knows this because I was talking to him about him a couple days ago here, is the cost. When the Aquanics first came out, it was $16,000 or something. There's nobody here in this room, in all respect to everyone here, okay, Mark, except maybe you, at Purdue, that's going to say, hey, I'll take a $16,000 piece of foam, please. Matter of fact, give me 2 of them. Nobody's doing that. Okay. So Randy, you guys were flying them last year. Talk a little bit about the program that you guys are doing with this that really got some people's attention this year.
So basically what we're doing is a lease. So it's for $2,500, that gets them a 1-year lease on the drone. They get there's a full warranty on it. They were buying there was also some accessories that came along with the first year of it that's in this other case here, some extra batteries.
You'd buy that addition to the 25.
Right, that's an addition, but that's a one-time thing. And then so it's a $2,500 a year. And so I think we had 9 or 10 of them this past year that did it. I think they're all going to re-up. We're hoping to double or triple that program here for this next year. And the guys that did it this year, there was a few logistical things that we dealt with, but most of them got along really well. And we're using Drone Deploy to process all the pictures. And we're working through a few technicalities with that to streamline that process, but for the most part, it went really well.
So Randy, that 2,500 a year, just really quick. At some point, do they own it? Talk a little bit about that. How's it work?
The plan is after 3 years, they will own the drone, and there's a full warranty that goes along with that all
That's
the way
really
through.
cool. So, Mark, you guys have Aquanics as well. Am I the only person that when you sit and watch this takeoff every time, you're like a 12-year-old kid? Because it's like the coolest drone you've ever seen, isn't it?
It's really cool. It just you have to be very conscious about where you allow them to take off and land.
Right.
The-
You really have no control. When I say that, I don't want to say you don't have any control because you have the controller in your hand, but it's not a conventional drone. And the aspect is I'm gonna fly this one here in a minute. Well, I'm gonna fly it. I'm gonna do an auto takeoff. I'm gonna move the drone. I'm gonna fly it. When you take Quantics, you plan your route, or it's already preset in the machine, and you swipe up a big green button, and that thing's going to go up to 100 feet, and then it's going to transition to an airplane. Well, guess what? If your grain leg's at 135 feet, and on your little controller it says, oh, look, it's going to head toward my grain leg, and you hit the green button, it's going to hit the grain leg. Okay, so Mark's 100% right. But it's great to see. Oh, and by the way, as far as I know, this is only one of the very few drones in the United States that's protected by the Department of Justice, meaning you cannot take this technology out of the United States, period. There's a warning card that comes with it because it's protected technology. So what I'm getting at is our hard-earned tax money that goes to do other fun things that AeroVironment does. It's nice to see some of this technology coming back to us. So as we wrap up on this, I want to talk to each of you about the status of, dare I say it, but data, and how the data we collect and how that is starting to get easier. There used to be a lot of people in this space. There's really not anymore. There's only a couple real players. Randy mentioned Drone Deploy. There's a couple others. Mark, what's your kind of go-to for data? If you're using a Mavic or a Phantom or this Quantics, what are you guys working on at Purdue as far as processing that data, stitching all the images together?
Traditionally, we've used Drone Deploy, Centera, Pix 4D, once in a while Precision Hawk. I've used all 4 of them. And we've got some people that are doing their own in like QGIS or ArcGIS and some of those, but primarily we use Drone Deploy. It works.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if Mike is here. He was going to stop by. One of the partners of Drone Deploy actually lives here in Indiana. And the interesting part is I remember sitting in a tailgate with him at Randy's farm and probably, come on, Randy,
Yeah.
14, 13?
Yeah, 13 or 14.
Telling Mike that we needed the data at the tailgate of the pickup truck when the drone flies. And I'll never forget that. He had his arm on his hip and he said, Chad, it's going to take us a while to do that. And I said, I don't know. You're in San Francisco. You got a lot of money. Go figure it out. And they did. And what that means is you can get live data in real time at your tailgate. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic things you can do that, quite honestly, needed to happen. And I think today it's pretty functional. Randy, talk about your position at Flying Ag. What do you guys see with your clients and data? What are they using?
Primarily, they're using Drone Deploy. The ones that are wanting to process that way. A lot of them are just going up, some of them just have them for fun videos. I mean, it's fun to go up and shoot pictures of planters and combines going through the field and taking a few pictures of some fields for landlords. The ones that are really using it for scouting, that one automated flight and whatnot, are using Drone Deploy. One nice feature that Drone Deploy has with the Mavic is the primary one, is a feature called Live Map, where it actually stitches on your on your tablet right there as you're flying. So by the time the drone lands, I can see the whole field of what it's seen. That's honestly my biggest hang up with the Aquanics is I don't get that right away. And I do have to go I have to go process that data. But I can get over a lot more acres, so there's a place for both.
I would remind everyone here, and I know these two fellows would totally agree with me. You got to define what the mission is. If you don't want a map and you just want to take some pictures and you're going to stay, relatively close, that little drone that Mark's got is fantastic for some basic stuff. You want to do the next thing? This Mini is outstanding. You can take it out in the field. I've flown it in 25, 30 mile an hour winds. It's a fantastic little guy. This thing works great. This guy also does have some sensors on it, so it does have sonar in the front so you won't run into a tree. Also has auto takeoff, auto land. But the one thing I'm excited about in this new drone that's only about a month old, this is the new Mavic 3. I would say this will be our flagship now for a couple years, is the sensor on this. Randy's booth is on the other side here. You'll see Randy over there. But the reason why I bring that up is that big camera on it does have a focal zoom and a digital zoom, and it's pretty amazing in quality. Something that we didn't have to spend $40,000 on. We could spend $3,500 and have a pretty decent zoom quality. So I did want to mention that. Eric, if you would you come up here? I'm going to have him hold the microphone, and I just want to demonstrate to you guys how easy these are to fly. Show of hands in here, who has flown a drone? Awesome. So about a third of you. So for the rest of you, I just want to show this to you. I'm going to have Eric be the mic guy.
I stepped away for just a little while. Are you still droning on? You get that? He got it. He got it. Okay.
So basically, the reason why I want to show this to you is this isn't hard. So what I'm going to simulate is here. This is a different controller, but it's basically would be the same thing if I use my smartphone, okay? It's the same process. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start up the drone. You push the button and hold, and you'll see it starts to beep and do some stuff. I'm going to set it on the ground and let it initialize. And then I'm going to turn on this controller. So I did the same thing. I pushed a button and I held it. So I don't know about all of you, but I trust that you all can push two buttons because that's all is to this so far. Now you got to remember this drone has sensors all the way around it. So it can essentially see the chair and me, and it has sensors all around it. And once this starts up, it's going through its initializing process. I'm going to do what's called auto takeoff. I'm not going to try to impress you. I'm going to let the drone do that work. So there's a little up button over here I'm going to push, and I'm going to hold it to take off. It turns green. Move over, Eric. So far, I haven't touched anything. Now, this technology is in that same $800 drone that Randy had. I could take this right now. I can fly it up. And if it was 20-mile-an-hour wind, that drone's going to sit and do the exact same thing. When you're done with the controls, you just take your hand off it. And when you're done flying, guess what? I can do the same thing. There's a little down button here you can push and hold it. And now the drone can see the ground, and it knows where the ground is. It's going to come in and land. So you have to remember, while this drone is flying, if you have your smartphone here and you take a photo, and like you heard Mark talk about, maybe you see some disease in your field or whatever that issue is, while it is in flight, I can actually download that to my phone and I can text that right away while the drone's in flight. And these drones just work. I mean, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of flights a year, and I don't even know the last time I crashed a drone, 4 or 5 years ago. I hit a light pole in a training meeting. That's what I did. But they just don't do that. I had a fella ask me here at the show yesterday, boy, I'd buy one of those, Chad, but I'm afraid I'm going to crash it. That's not how this works. The one thing I will say in regards to that, you know how you've got a friend or a family relative that maybe you'll just go ahead and drive and they can ride in the car with you because you don't really want to ride with them? There are people that crash drones because they make some mistakes. Okay, so if somebody says, hey, I bought a new drone and I crashed it, you were probably doing something you shouldn't have. Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. There's enough safety in these that I would trust that any of you could fly these without any trouble. I wouldn't worry about that hobby side of this. So I know we're getting close on time.
He trusts all of you, but he kept looking at me when he talked about crashing the drone. If someone would do it, it would be me.
Thanks, Eric. With that, I'll let these two fellas have a couple closing remarks. And my question to close with is, Randy, what advice would you give somebody? You saw the show of hands. About a third of these people have flown drones. 2/3 haven't. What advice would you give to somebody today about drones and considering them for the farm?
Number one is know what you want to do with it. You know, not everybody needs a $3,500 drone. You know, when an $800 drone will do that job very easily. You know, so know what you intend to do with it, you know, before you just go dump a bunch of money into it.
That's great. Mark, what about you?
I would say if you are planning on using this for your farm operation or anything commercial, make sure that you understand the rules. The FAA has very specific rules so that you understand airspace and limitations of what you're allowed to do. Like you're not allowed to fly over 400 feet and you have to keep it in line of sight. And if you don't, bad things can happen. I went to buy one off of Craigslist, a Mavic Pro off of Craigslist one time, and the kid that was selling it posted his max altitude at 13,500 feet.
Oh,
That's where real airplanes fly, not drones.
Wow.
So
wow.
if you have questions about what you are not allowed to do, stop down and see me or stop over and see Randy. Both of us would be happy to talk with you about licensing and safety.
I appreciate that, Mark. I thank these two fellows for their time. The one thing I will add on that same safety aspect is I always use this analogy. I have never in my lifetime seen someone get on their bicycle and get on the interstate. Like come out of their town, go to the interstate, and just pedal as hard as they can down the off-ramp and jump on the interstate. You want to know why? Because from a young age, they've been told you don't do that. That's bad. You'll get killed. Don't do it. The reality is, in the drone space, unless you have aviation experience, and all due respect to everybody here, you don't understand what's happening above our heads because you don't know, you're not pilots. And we're in that era of that. It's not going to be any question for my girls at home or Randy's girls that are, how old are your girls?
11 and 13.
11 and 13, mine are 9 and 7. They're not going to have any trouble with drones because they grew up with it. It's that in between, Mark. That's the one. And so make sure you know the regulations. With that, we're going to be here. The Purdue booth is down at the end, just underneath where lunch is up above. Randy's is right on the other side across. I guess you're near Oxbow over there, aren't you, Randy, on the other side? If you got any questions asked, be sure to ask us. We've all got a ton of experience. I want to thank these two folks for coming up here and letting me grill them. I've known both these guys for several years. So with that, Eric, is there anything else you want to add?
We've got a little bit of time now, so if anyone has questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'll come find you. I do want to ask one thing. So Chad, I was telling you last night that I was sitting up there where my radio booth is, and someone came by and said, "Hey, did the show happen?" I said, "Oh, it's happening tomorrow and the next day." And she said, "I'd love to bring my kids and do a little field trip of the show to learn more about agriculture." And I told them about the drone show that was happening this morning. And she said, "My kids love drones. That'd be great." And I said, "Well, there might be some careers in agriculture that really stem from that. Where do you guys see that moving forward as careers in agriculture doing what you do?"
It's pretty, it's a great question, first of all. I actually have probably placed a half a dozen kids that I've known in agriculture that we're looking for internships and all that stuff in the drone space and have moved on. There are tons of opportunities. That's an understatement. Mark, you probably got a little experience in that space.
Just a little. Most in agriculture, most of it's going to be either flying on a large farm operation or in the ag retail space. The one thing I like to tell people, I get people ask me all the time about starting a drone business. and I'm going to fly for local farmers. Okay, that's fine, but make sure to diversify yourself enough that you're going to work more than just the end of May through the end of August, because doing aerial photography, weddings, roof inspections, all kinds of things you can do with the same drone, but don't limit yourself to I'm going to fly fields, because for a private organization, they need to go beyond just that.
I know Randy knows this, but I do some work in the construction space, in aggregate, gravel, sand, all kinds of stuff. That by far today, the number one industry that uses commercial drones is not real estate, it's not the photography industry, it is the construction industry. Because they are taking drones like that one. Sorry, I wonder where it was. That one down there on the floor, and they're replacing tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars of equipment. I've done a whole bunch of work in this field. These two fellows were talking about Drone Deploy, which is a service that essentially automates the drone. So the drone goes back and forth, takes pictures, it stitches it together. For ag space, that's a 2D image, right? It's a photo of a field looking from above, straight down. In the construction space, it has the ability to do 3D modeling. So that means if you've got a pile of sand that is several 100,000 tons, in the past, they would use GPS and some other very sophisticated things to let you know how much sand is in the pile. Today, you can take that drone that's $3,000, and in about 30 minutes, one guy by himself, I can get you within 1%. And that is a game changer. And construction companies are using these like crazy right now. I know one major construction firm in the U.S. that has 70 pilots, 70 in company cars with 2 drones with a backup that go construction site to construction site, because they're monitoring construction progress. You can do 3D models of buildings. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. So that's the one that, to me, the last few years has really been. I'm sure you guys see that at Purdue too. You're smiling at me, Mark. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been on several of those jobs.
Teaching
the last 2
people
years.
how to run them too. What other questions? Is there any questions from? Yes, sir. Right here.
Back in the day when you had the drone school at Decatur, Illinois, 5-6 years ago, I bought a drone there, and then I get home and I couldn't get insurance on it. My insurance company just looked at me and go, "We don't know anything about that." So how has that come about? Is insurance available? Liability?
So hopefully everybody heard the question was insurance. I'll grab that one. Yes, it's super easy today. There's actually even software built into drones now with Drone Deploy where you can insure the flight you're taking that day. There's all kinds of stuff, but yeah, it's very inexpensive. You'd have to have that to do anything commercial today, but there's more than one provider. The first time I had drone insurance would have been probably like 11 or 12, and I'm embarrassed to tell you what I paid for it. And it was from an insurance carrier actually in California that insured Hollywood for drones there first flying on movie sets. And that's the only place that I could find that would insure me. Now you can get it anywhere. It's very easy. But great question. Mark, anything to add on insurance, or is that pretty typical for you too now?
Yeah, it's pretty typical. I mean, you can, there's several that you can download an app for and turn it on, turn it off when you need it. On the farm, most of your major carriers are going to have it as part of your umbrella policy, or as a right, you can get it as a rider or something.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff. Great question. Any other questions? So there's 2 ways to do that. The manufacturers of drones have some actual damage coverage. So like if you crash your drone, they'll send you another one. They do offer that. I think they limit that, don't they, Randy? How many you can do?
2 in a year.
You can do 2 in a year, which is kind of comical. Now, I also will tell you, we get the question a lot about service of drones. That was a real nightmare 6-7 years ago. You essentially threw them in the garbage because you couldn't get the parts, couldn't fix them. Today, that is not the case. You take that drone I test flew in here. If you would make a mistake and damage it, you can send it off. It'll be repaired How long does it take, Randy? It doesn't take very long. A couple, 3 weeks.
2-3 weeks.
And it'll be back and reasonably priced. Meaning if you would crash this drone and say you damage the camera and you break this leg right here, you know, it might be $600. It's very fair, and they'll send it back to you. So, yeah. Randy, do you have anything else to add in that?
You know, I've repaired some in the past, you know, putting new shells on Phantoms and things like that, which is a lot of work, and I'm honestly kind of a pain in the butt. But if it's within the first year, for sure, it's if you screw up, obviously it's on you. If something happens in the software, DJI stands behind it. They're very good on that part. But even for 2 and 3 year old drones, I'll tell guys, it's just send it off to DJI or to the manufacturer. They can fix it faster and cheaper than I can. And honestly, a lot of times they'll send you a new drone.
I mean, I think the reality is, and this is a pretty high performance drone, you don't want to have one of these props hit you when it's flying. I mean, it's going to leave a mark. You're going to hurt somebody, let alone getting this near an eye or something. The smaller drones, they're probably not even going to hurt you, to be honest with you. This one will. And some of the drones that Mark's got down there are just honestly quite scary. If you're near them, you don't want to be, because they will. It doesn't matter how good your Carhartts are, they're going to go through them. I mean, that's the reality. So you got to be careful with that, like anything else. Don, did you have a question? Don's question up here was, how easy is Drone Deploy to use? So I'm going to do this kind of high level. When we fly the Aquanics drone, this one is kind of my favorite at the moment because I can fly a lot of acres. The nice part about this is, before you go to the field, Randy, how many fields do you have? I'm testing you.
25.
Great. Randy can actually upload 25 fields into the software before he goes. It'll download into the controller, and it'll actually take a mile of surrounding data with it. So when he gets to the field, he does not need the internet. He has everything there, and he can, the outline of the field, he can set that up before he goes. Drone Deploy will do the same thing if you want at your computer, but it's super easy to use. It's literally, hey, I want to fly this 80 acres. Here's 4 corners. Hit the green button. It does its safety checks and goes. So it's super easy. I always tell this story back in, what was Ag Eagle days, Randy? 13? Somewhere in there. I'll never forget this. We had a great spring in central Illinois. I spent a really large amount of money on a drone, you know, teens money. What did those things cost?
Yeah, it was like 13, 14.
Yeah, it was a big money. Had a catapult launcher, and I had a trailer. I was the drone guy. And we had perfect weather when the crops emerged. So the crop's out of the ground. You can row the corn now, and I start flying, and I mean a lot. I get maybe 8 or 10 days in of flying every single day, and I'd bought a brand new $8,000 best PC you could buy with the best of the best on it to process the data. It finally rained, and I'm like, all right, let's go process data. Some of you may have heard the story. I literally spent 16 hours on the fastest computer on the planet. Are you laughing at me, Mark? To process 87 acres. And I went, oh, great. I just flew 6,000 acres in the last 10 days. And it just took me 16 hours to process an 80. This is not going to work. We don't do that now, Don. We don't have that issue, but you guys, I know, Mark, you've seen that as well. But the software works really good now. It's pretty easy. Yeah, basically, when you use this little drone right here on the floor, you will take your smartphone. You put your smartphone in here or an iPad. Randy's got one. He can show you at his booth. You've got one too.
I ditched the iPad and I fly everything off my phone.
Yeah, the phone works really good. I'm kind of leaning a little bit toward Mark. I used to always use an iPad just because it's easier, and then no one will bother me. Because if I'm on my phone and my phone's on my controller and you call me, I don't want to take a phone call while I'm on my flying app. Today, you can get around that now, but you just put your phone in and it's all right there on your phone. So it's not in the drone. Basically, the software is flying the drone for you. Yeah, great question, sir. But it's not difficult to do at all. I think we're getting done on time. If you got questions, fellas, thank you for your time this morning. Our impromptu program, I think, went pretty well. I don't think I embarrassed either one of you too bad, so I appreciate that.
That's the first.
Are they doing karaoke or no? It's just me this time? I thought they were, no.
Joking with Chad yesterday, he didn't read his contract very well, apparently. We put 3 songs in there. He misunderstood what he was supposed to do on stage today. It was supposed to be karaoke, but I guess we'll just put him up in the bar here later and have him perform for you guys up there. By the way, that leads me to the next thing. You should read your contracts. We have a seminar on that coming up tomorrow about carbon credits. Read your contracts, know what's in them, so be sure to tune in for that as well. And I hope we learned a lot today. I learned that that's obviously the reason Chad doesn't answer my phone calls. It's because he's flying a drone all the time, so that's why he's not taking my calls. So again, thanks to these guys. Really appreciate it. This was a great presentation. Drones are really becoming more and more important on the farm, and we wanted to bring you some of the practical uses of that. So thank you very much. I want to thank our sponsors as well. Bain Welker, AgDirect, Farm Credit Mid-America. We're going to take a short break here, clear the stage, do some moving around, and we're going to have our next seminar coming up. It's with
No problem.
Mike Silver from Kokomo Grain and John Zanker from Risk Management Commodities. We're going to have a market outlook roundtable coming up in just a few moments, so stick with us here. Thank you very much.